The tension in Atlanta was different the moment those courtroom doors opened. This wasn't one of those staged reunion tapings where producers whispered in earpieces and cast members rehearsed insults. This wasn't another fake fight meant to trend for a few hours before the next scandal came along. This was real life, and the air was so heavy it felt like the city itself had stopped to listen. Scrappy walked in first, his steps slower than usual but his presence carrying more weight than 1,000 Instagram posts. He wasn't walking in as a rapper tonight, or as some reality TV cast member. He was walking in as a man who had nearly lost his life in a fight that had spun out of control. His face still carried the echoes of hospital lights, of scars that couldn't be hidden by makeup, but his eyes were different now. They were cold, sharp, locked straight on the man who had dragged him into all of this. Across the room, Kirk Frost sat at the defense table, dressed in a dark suit that screamed money but couldn't hide the desperation tightening his jaw. No amount of polish or expensive fabric could shield him from the reality about to unfold. He had spent years laughing off scandal after scandal, smirking his way through every betrayal, cheating story, and rumor. But this was no storyline. This was the state of Georgia versus Kirk Frost, and no cameras in the world could edit the ending. The whispers started before the judge even arrived. The benches were filled with more than just reporters. Bloggers, gossip personalities, even producers from Love and Hip Hop. Atlanta had squeezed their way in. Phones buzzed nonstop as updates spilled across Twitter and Instagram in real time. Hashtags trended within minutes. Hashtag Scrappy Justice, hashtag KirkFind, hashtag LHHATL Chaos. Everyone in that room knew they were witnessing something that would change the course of the franchise forever. And sitting in the middle of it all, clutching her purse so tightly her knuckles had turned white, was Rasheeda. She had stood beside Kirk through humiliation most women would have walked away from: side babies, leaked videos, and years of whispers about his loyalty. But this was different. This wasn't just gossip. This was the law, and no brand, no boutique, no hit single could spin this into something glamorous. When the judge finally walked in, the silence that dropped was deafening. The gavel struck once and every head in the room lifted, every phone lowered, every chest stilled. The case had dragged for weeks. Testimonies, footage, hospital records from Scrappy's collapse after the fight. The back and forth between lawyers had been nasty enough to feel like another reunion special, but this wasn't TV. This was the moment of truth. And when the judge began to speak, every word landed like a hammer. After reviewing the evidence, the testimonies, and the disturbing pattern of behavior, the judge said, voice steady, "This court finds Mr. Kirk Frost guilty of aggravated assault resulting in serious bodily harm." The gasp that followed was collective, like the entire room had forgotten to breathe. But what came next tore the air apart. In addition to a 12-month sentence in Fulton County Jail, this court orders restitution to the victim in the amount of $25 million. The word slammed down like a grenade. Not 25,000. Not 200,000. 25 million. A number so outrageous, so devastating, the court reporters had to pause their typing to make sure they hadn't misheard. Scrappy closed his eyes and breathed deeply, his chest rising like he was finally exhaling years of pain. It wasn't about the money. It wasn't about a number on a check. It was about someone finally being forced to pay in a way the world couldn't ignore. For once, the arrogance that had walked free after every scandal was being caged by money and time. At the defense table, Kirk's mask cracked. His lips twisted as silent curses slipped from them, his lawyer tugging at his sleeve, whispering frantic appeals. But the cameras zoomed in on the rage that flushed his face red. He wasn't used to losing. He wasn't used to being dragged. He was used to dragging. But today, no amount of bravado could save him. The gavel had spoken, and the echo was final. Rasheeda broke instantly. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she shook her head in disbelief, whispering to herself, "We don't have that kind of money. We don't even have that." The cameras captured her every tremble, every sob. Within minutes, clips of her whispered breakdown had gone viral. Fans who once admired her loyalty were now calling it blind desperation. Memes mocked her, others sympathized, but no one could ignore her collapse. And then there was Tasha K, sitting in the back row with her arms folded, her smirk wide enough to slice through the silence. She had been hinting for weeks about more evidence, more receipts, more chaos yet to come. And when the verdict dropped, she leaned over to a fellow blogger and whispered the words that would light social media on fire, "And that's just the beginning. Wait until camera 3 drops." She didn't shout. She didn't need to. The microphones planted around the room caught it. Within minutes, Twitter was ablaze. Hashtag camera 3 trended worldwide, and the courtroom hadn't even emptied yet. The judge kept his composure, unmoved by the chaos unfolding in the benches. "The defendant will begin his sentence immediately," he announced. "Failure to pay the restitution will result in asset seizures." Guards stepped forward. Kirk's face twisted in disbelief, panic setting in as reality sank its claws in. This wasn't just paper. This was real. Shackles clinked, hands pulled him up, and for the first time in his career, Kirk Frost wasn't walking into a storyline he could control. He was being dragged into a cell Rasheeda couldn't meet his eyes. She covered her face, shaking, as the man she defended through every public humiliation was led away in chains. The cameras caught everything, the cuffs, her sobs, his curses, and producers silently thanked the chaos gods for a moment no one could have scripted. Scrappy didn't gloat. He didn't cheer. His face stayed calm, almost too calm, like a man who had seen so much pain that even justice couldn't make him smile. Outside the courthouse, when reporters swarmed him, shoving microphones in his face, he gave them the line that would headline every article: "Money don't erase what happened. Jail don't erase the scars. But for once, he's paying for his actions." Those words, raw and measured, became the rallying cry for fans everywhere. In the crowd, Yandy Smith-Harris shook her head, admitting into cameras, "This ain't TV no more. This is real life. This is families being torn apart." Mendices Harris, standing beside her, muttered under his breath that he knew Kirk's arrogance would one day catch up to him. Even young Jock, usually the clown of every situation, couldn't find humor. He tried to break the tension with, "25 million? Man, even Monopoly don't got that kind of money." The joke spread, but this time no one was laughing. For Rasheeda, the walk to her car was the longest she'd ever taken. Paparazzi screamed questions. "Are you staying with him? Did you know about the setup? How will you pay?" Her silence only made the answers louder. She covered her face with shaking hands, her empire trembling beneath the weight of her husband's downfall, and then came the spark that set the internet ablaze. A grainy video leaked online, Kirk, inside the jail intake room, muttering to himself as he was fingerprinted. His voice was low but venomous. "This ain't over. I'll burn everything down before I let them bury me." The clip replayed across every platform, fans dissecting each word. Was it a threat? A promise? A breakdown? Nobody knew, but everyone agreed on one thing: this war was far from finished. That night, Atlanta buzzed like never before. Screens replayed the footage, blogs dissected each sob, each glare, each whispered word. For Scrappy, the chapter closed with quiet vindication. For Kirk, it opened with humiliation. For Rasheeda, it unraveled into devastation. And for Tasha K, it was only Act 1. The morning after the verdict, Atlanta woke up different. Everywhere you looked, TV screens, Instagram lives, Twitter feeds, the same images repeated: Kirk Frost in handcuffs, Rasheeda breaking down, and Scrappy walking out of the courthouse with a calm that spoke louder than anger. It wasn't gossip anymore, it was history, and the city couldn't stop talking. In barbershops, salons, corner stores, people argued about the $25 million fine. Some said it was too much, others said it was long overdue. But nobody denied one fact: Kirk's reign was finished. Inside her home, Rasheeda sat at the kitchen counter surrounded by bills, court papers, and her buzzing phone. Sympathy mixed with cruelty in her messages, fans offering prayers while others mocked her loyalty. She whispered into the cameras through tears, "I don't even know if I can survive this marriage anymore." That clip spread like wildfire, changing the way fans saw her. She wasn't the strong wife holding it all together anymore, she was a woman drowning. Meanwhile, Scrappy sat in silence, the television showing his face across every channel. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't celebrating. He whispered to himself, "I ain't never wanted it to go this far." When his daughter asked why people were talking about him so much, he told her gently, "Daddy just had to make sure people stop hurting him." The innocence in her eyes made the weight heavier than the gavel that sentenced Kirk. Across town, Yandy Smith-Harris and Mendices Harris watched the reruns like everyone else. Mendices shook his head, saying, "Pride always come back to bite you." Yandy leaned forward, her voice low. "This ain't just pride. This is empire shattering. If Kirk crumbles, Rasheeda crumbles." They both knew it. Atlanta alliances were shifting, and the Frosts no longer held their crown. Young Jock, on the other hand, tried to turn chaos into comedy. He went live on Instagram replaying Kirk's face at the moment of the verdict, joking, "Man looked like somebody told him love and hip-hop stopped cutting checks." Fans laughed for a second, but then they dragged him for being messy. Even Jock, usually the clown, couldn't hide the unease in his eyes. And then there was Tasha K. If anyone knew how to stir the pot, it was her. That night, she went live holding a flash drive between her fingers like it was a golden ticket. "Y'all thought that courtroom was the end? That was just Act 1. Camera 3 ain't no myth. And when I drop this, you'll see why Kirk Frost should have been locked up years ago." Within minutes, #Camera 3 was trending. Fans argued about what it could be, another angle of the fight, secret deals, hidden names, but nobody doubted that whatever Tasha had, it would change everything. In jail, Kirk was already crumbling. No cameras, no edits, no Rasheeda to smooth things over, just walls, bars, and silence. He told other inmates the system was against him, that Scrappy had betrayed him, that Tasha had ruined his name. But at night, alone, he muttered, 25 million? I'll never bounce back. The arrogance that once made him untouchable now ate at him from the inside. Back outside, the producers of Love and Hip Hop saw opportunity. Cameras followed everyone, Rasheeda crying in her boutique, Scrappy staring into space, Yandy whispering about alliances, Jock laughing online. They didn't need a script. Real life had handed them gold, but the weight was breaking the cast. At a dinner taping, Rasheeda snapped at Scrappy for the first time. Her voice shook as she yelled, "Do you have any idea what you've done to me? To my kids? To my family's name?" Scrappy stayed calm, his words slicing sharper than her tears. "What your husband did almost killed me. If protecting myself ruins your brand, maybe you was protecting the wrong man all along." The table froze. No one knew what to say. MNDCs tried to soften it. Both sides lost. Scrappy lost his peace, Rasheeda lost her foundation. Nobody wins. But Yandy shook her head. Scrappy stood up for himself. That's a win. Kirk finally facing consequences? That's a win. Her words, filled with conviction, drew a line in the sand, and then Tasha K came back with more. A short audio clip leaked online, Kirk's voice grainy but clear enough. "Make sure the cameras catch Scrappy Wilden. We need him to look crazy." Fans exploded. Was this proof of a setup? Proof producers were in on it? Rasheeda's comments filled with fire emojis and demands for answers. Her brand was crumbling in real time, and just as the fire seemed ready to die, Tasha leaned into her camera with a smirk. "Y'all think this was bad? Camera 3 got faces in it y'all never expected. This ain't just Kirk's downfall, it's about to take down the whole empire." The shock hit like another verdict. Blogs speculated, fans theorized, and the entire franchise trembled. For the first time, it wasn't just Kirk's world collapsing, it was the whole foundation shaking beneath them. The night Tasha K finally went live, Atlanta stopped moving. Tens of thousands sat glued to their screens, the chat flying so fast it looked like a blur. She leaned back in her chair with that signature smirk, wine glass in one hand, a flash drive dangling from the other. "Y'all thought the courthouse was the end?" she teased, dragging out the pause for maximum drama. "Nah, baby. That was Act 1. Camera 3 is where the truth lives." She clicked play, and the world watched what no one expected. The footage was shaky but clear enough to make jaws drop. Kirk Frost sat across from two producers, legs crossed, smirking like he had the game under his thumb. His voice cut through the static, "Make sure the cameras catch Scrappy Wilden. We need him to look unstable. Push him till he snaps. And when he does, make sure it looks like his fault." The producers nodded, even laughed. One scribbled notes like it was just business. Kirk leaned back and added, "They want numbers. They don't care how we get them." That one line cracked the internet wide open. Fans erupted with rage. This wasn't messy reality TV, it was manipulation, a setup meant to ruin a man's image for ratings. Twitter exploded, blogs dropped emergency posts, and hashtags shifted from hashtag Scrappy wins to hashtag cancel the show and hashtag protect the cast. For years, people accused producers of stirring drama, but this was the first time there was proof. At home, Rasheeda sat in silence watching the footage on her phone. Her tears weren't hidden this time. She let them stream freely. With trembling hands, she slipped her wedding ring off her finger, placed it on the counter, and whispered, "I can't carry this no more." That short clip, captured by a camera crew lingering nearby, hit the internet within minutes. Fans called it the day Rasheeda let go. Some praised her for finally walking away, others called her late to the truth. But no one denied the symbolism. Her loyalty had finally snapped. Inside jail, Kirk saw the headlines too. A guard slid a newspaper under his door, the words, "Camera 3 exposes Kirk Frost," screaming across the front page. He hurled it against the wall, pacing his cell like a caged animal. "That ain't the full story. They setting me up." He shouted until his voice cracked, but nobody came. No Rasheeda to defend him, no producers to spin his rage into something lighter, no cameras to control the narrative. Just the echo of his voice bouncing off concrete walls. His arrogance, the same arrogance that once let him laugh off scandals, was now feeding his desperation. Meanwhile, Scrappy faced the press with a calm that even surprised him. Reporters shoved microphones in his face, cameras flashing like lightning, but he stood firm. "I told y'all I ain't wanna be nobody's storyline no more," he said. "Now the whole world see I wasn't crazy. They tried to play me, they tried to break me, but God don't let lies stand forever." His words spread like fire, clipped into TikToks, quoted across blogs, shared in captions. For the first time, fans saw him not as a character in a show, but as a man who had been surviving. The cast felt the quake just as hard. Yandy Smith Harris, usually measured, turned fiery in front of the cameras. If producers can bait Kirk into setting up Scrappy, who else have they played with? Who else's life got twisted for drama? Mendices Harris shook his head beside her, warning, when one empire falls, the others panic. Secrets don't stay buried when blood's in the water. Even young Jock, who lived off jokes, looked shaken. On live he muttered, if they can edit us like puppets, what else don't y'all know? He tried to laugh, but his eyes told a different story, fear, and then Tasha twisted the knife deeper. As her live stream ended, she leaned close to the camera, her eyes glittering with mischief. If y'all thought camera 3 was bad, she whispered, wait until you see what's on camera 4. The words hit like another gavel, sending shockwaves across the fandom. Speculation lit up every blog and Reddit thread. Who was on camera 4? Another cast member? A producer? Someone higher? Theories flew wild, and the franchise's entire foundation shook under the weight of a threat that hadn't even been revealed yet. Rasheeda, after removing her ring, filmed a confessional through swollen eyes. I defended him through everything. Through Jasmine, through the cheating, through the lies. And now he left me with this? I can't do it no more. The raw pain in her voice made fans split down the middle, some sent prayers, others dragged her for standing by him too long. But either way, her name dominated the conversation, her heartbreak forever tied to Kirk's downfall. Scrappy, when asked about camera 4, shook his head. I don't even want to know what's on it. I already lived enough pain. I ain't trying to relive it. But even as he said it, he knew the storm wasn't done. In Atlanta, storms never end, they just shift into new battles. Inside his cell, Kirk kept pacing, muttering darker promises under his breath. I'll burn it all down before I let them bury me. I'll take everybody with me. The guards ignored him, the walls absorbed him, but those words, if ever heard beyond the bars, were dangerous. His pride had twisted into vengeance, and even locked away. His threat hung over Atlanta like smoke before a fire. The fight that started as another messy night had spiraled into a courtroom war. A $25 million fine, a jail sentence, a marriage collapsing, and a blogger with a flash drive that cracked open an entire industry. Atlanta wasn't just buzzing anymore, it was holding its breath. For Scrappy, it was vindication. For Rasheeda, it was devastation. For Kirk, it was humiliation. And for Tasha K, it was only the beginning. Because if camera 3 could shatter one empire, everyone knew camera 4 could burn the rest to the ground.